I get the vibration. I get vibration as well. Funnily enough, because I haven't had the jabs, a lot of it's not actually in my body, but is on my body, particularly my feet, where I've walked barefoot on the ground after chemtrails. It's gone into my feet, and it's obviously in there. It's embedded under a layer of skin. And so why does the vibration always happen in the feet? Because you pick it up all off the floor. It doesn't matter whether you walk inside or out, barefoot on the floor, then it's covered, right? If you go and scrub the hell out of your feet, you'll find that disappears halfway. I often get, like when I lay down in my bed, because it's got dust all over it, the stuff that's floating in the air, it comes down, and I'll start getting vibration on the legs. I'll just wipe my legs clean, just wipe it. And all of a sudden that vibration disappears. It's like it's stuff settled on the skin that's been enlivened by EMF deliberately, like targeted. We're not talking about ambient. It's not just, there's not all this dust just vibrating everywhere. They turn it on when that's on you and they want to harass you. That's what and it's an AI that's doing it most of the time, I believe. And so essentially, if you're targeted, then that stuff will get enlivened and they'll use whatever's on your body. So if you can imagine the dust settle in different parts of your body, it might be on your head, it might be in your ears, and they can do the tinnitus. If you clear that shit out, excuse my language, if you clear that stuff out of here, mine goes down to next to nothing. People have had the jabs are probably different because it's possibly coming out of their skin. It's coming and it's proliferated inside the skin and inside the body because it was designed specifically to proliferate through the body. It's harder for someone who hasn't. And so they have to rely on all this fallout. This is why I'm in that position. They've had to rely on all the fallout and then anything you eat that has the same crap in it, because they've found these Morgellon fibers in food. It's like in majority of our foods. It's in our medications. It's in our cosmetics. It's in our water. It's in our drinks. It's in our air. So essentially, these fibers in their simplest forms are EMF vibrators. Like that's the main thing. They just vibrate. And using that, they can create heat. They can create vibration. They can create numbness. They can create so many different things. But I think there's more to it than that. But that's in the most basic form. Yeah. That's
and they can definitely cause pain and discomfort.
They can burn. They can burn holes in your skin, and I've done that too. Where I've had, mozzie bites. A lot of targets they experience mozzie bites, like a real sharp pinpoint. And every time I get my microscope, I'll go and have a look at where that pinpoint was. There'll be one of those little black fibers sitting in exactly the same point. And I'll be able to see the little cavity.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it has a little cavity where it's a burn. It looks like a little spot of oil that's dropped on there. And I've taken photos of this. I've got it in one of my articles. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention one more book here. So this is by Elena Freeland, and it's called Geoengineered Transhuman, and it's the hidden technologies of HARP, chemtrails, 5G, 6G, nanotechnology, synthetic biology, and the scientific effort to transform humanity. And in here, she's got a really good section on Morgellons. And she also references Tony Pantellerosco. And Sarah and I heard people talking about Tony when we were doing the Morgellons calls last year. And I think he's well known in the community. And he had a recent video where in the book here, it actually references his detox protocol, which is a detox bath, where you use Epsom salts, baking soda, borax, and trisodium phosphate, along with an electrical cool device that helps to disable the nanotech. So I've been using the detox baths, and those seem to help. I haven't got a chance to make the cool device, but I just recently became aware of a gentleman by the name of Onion Head Andrew. And I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but he's got a coil device, excuse me, that's based on he uses a stun gun, and hooks it up to makes a wire coil, and then and basically what you do is use the charge from the stun gun that charges that coil, and you put it near your body and you fire it off. And he claims that it disables the nanotech. I don't know if it completely knocks it out like an EMP, but so that seems kind of similar to Tony's device. So I need to look more into that. And actually, I did make the device. I bought a stun gun, and I had a little wire, put it on there, but the stun gun broke right away. It was a really cheap one. So I've got a better one now. But that's, along with trying to address the detox, getting the nanotech out of your body internally. There are devices apparently that can, help to do that as well from the outside. And yeah, so Tony's mentioned in here, and Onion Head just did his video where he's talking about that device, and I guess he's been using it for a while, and he claims like about a 60% success, and it helps with V2K, as well as some other stuff.
Really cool. Really cool. I mean, this is such good information. Thank you so much for sharing, Bob. And thank you so much,
Sure.
David and others, for chiming in. This is a really interesting, topic. There's so many who are going through this. They don't even understand, right? They're going through all these symptoms. They're getting misdiagnosed. A lot of them are being gaslighted within the medical industry and so forth. So it is really good to have someone in the community who could say, hey, look, this is what it is. And even if we have different perspectives, the point is we'll come around to the fact that this is a biological weapon that's happening to all of us, TIs. And I'm grateful that there are those, authors you mentioned that are providing these holistic approaches and treatments. So thank you so much, Bobby. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So next up, we have Rose. She's a survivor advocate and strategic professional working at the intersection of technology, trauma recovery, and human rights. She's now the host for the biweekly V2K call for targeted justice. I'm just so excited to have you, Rose. I know you're super busy, so thank you for joining us, and I can't wait to hear your story.
No, I wouldn't miss an opportunity to support what you're doing in Vine Sisters and the community, as I found so much support to get through by giving back to the community, by having connection. And that's what I talk about so much on the V2K call, is that you need to find your community within this community, but you need to call in, find a group or call that resonates with you. And it's really important, because as you start to share the patterns, as you start to hear the scripts, the similarities, things that are happening, you start to take the power back, and you empower others and empower ourselves. And so it's important that we continue to do that. And no matter what, we need to try to do that, because we're all trying to survive hour by hour, sometimes second by second, let alone day by day. I do want to start by saying, because I think I really lead with always, because this is so terribly fantastical what is happening to us, that everyone in the community, and certainly those who are talking to people that are unaware of what's happening to us, need to be open-minded. And so I always believe it's important not to align and really believe this is a bipartisan situation for the United States. I work with V2K across the international community, and there's so much that's happening across the international community through neuroethics. And I just think that if you understand what's happening, and you really don't align with a particular party, a presidential left or right, Democratic or Republican, leaning in a heavy position or finger pointing of an opposing party, that is a large scale alienation that they're trying to create from an entire community to another. And so when we lean into that and we start pointing fingers at one community or another, I know certainly as a V2K and a do that this is part of the PSYOPs program, and this is much deeper. This is global, and they've pitted us against neighbor. They've pitted us against our community, because we're powerful in community and connection. And so it's really easy to throw one group into this bucket of conspiracy theorist and dismiss us and discredit what we're saying. And we need to be connected, and we need to be open-minded and not point fingers so aggressively. And that's where I always suggest, of course, as I say on my call, this is my personal experience I'm sharing, my personal opinion that I'm sharing, and it's your listener discretion to advise. So I want to share a little bit about my testimony. I'm a second generation victim, target, warrior. Different people use different terminologies. I'm surviving DO and V2K for 13 plus years, actively V2K. It started with 8 lines of communication down to 3 regularly now. But my mother had this, and she had this for 8 years before ever me having actual V2K communication. I did certainly have a lot of subliminal, and I'll talk about what I believe is happening there with ghostly presences and behaviors that were happening to me through what they wanted me to believe in that ghost world of simulation that was happening while my mother was experiencing in real time V2K and DO. And so as someone that thought very logically and listened to her, though, without shame or judgment, I certainly would never tell others the stories that she was sharing. I never committed her to any mental institution. She has always been a very open-minded, free-spirited individual. She didn't follow the flock, and she thought differently than others. So I always open-minded listened to her position, but it consumed her every day. And every conversation we had, that's all she could talk about was the experience. And she thought she had, and I'm not dismissing this even today, that she had contacts with aliens. And then it became, men in black that were invisible, that wanted to know the alien she had contacted. And she started sharing all of the horrific experiences from the men in black, identifying them separately. She had real breakdown towards the end of the 8 years, and I took her to Dolores Cannon because I was willing to search for something that was in the realm of her comfort and spirituality and sensibility. And Dolores Cannon was doing hypnosis and working with all of these other things in dimensions and entities, and it really felt comfortable for her. So we did that, and I paid, and we went to Arkansas and saw Dolores, and my mother felt really much better after that experience. It was interesting that I started getting an intensity, but they were there doing this to me. I just was unaware that it was more subliminal and of ghostly. And I wasn't afraid. I've never been afraid of ghost and entity scenarios, but that was part of the scripts that they started really to dive into. But I think as I articulate, as I come to conferences or podcasts, and I'm in a speaking engagement, or I'm just having a one-on-one with another person, I'm extremely thoughtful of how I articulate and how I communicate the experiences that we all are sharing here on this call, because I was someone who listened to a targeted individual, if we want to call us targeted individuals, that's the name we use in our group, and it was very hard to imagine. It was very hard to believe. I did believe that she was not making sense of certain things that were happening to her. She had consumed too much sci-fi TV. I made things to say she's not crazy, but these really I can't imagine them happening. And so I'm always on both sides now, because I absolutely know more than she even had. I have much more severe scenarios and scripts that are played on me throughout these years as it evolves. This torture and this psyops torture evolves, but it's really important that we understand how hard it is for an everyday individual to hear us, to believe us. And that's the voice that we have to come to. As we're going to do a symposium in Boston, and we're really focused on investigative journalists. We're focused on academics and private institutions, international community, and we want to be heard. And so we have to think about how people can, what bite-sized symptoms, not pointing fingers, but what symptoms are we experiencing? What patterns? You guys are talking about scans and other things that we can document and show in volume patterns, and that's going to be the power of that. But I do think that there's the gift, or silver lining. It's terrible, but to see what it's like from both sides as someone who's experiencing it now, I have to share it, because I did for her for 8 years, hear her fantastical, horrific stories. But in my personal experience, as it became full V2K and the extreme torture through the dew across my body, and the pain signals and the simulation across my body happened after after I had a child, and I'm going through divorce. It was a very traumatic situation, and what they're doing and what I teach with trying to look at self-reflection and awareness is that they are using this always as emotional triggers and psychological warfare. And so although we have a lot of patterns and a lot of stories that are similar, every single individual will have a different experience because your own childhood and your own memories and experiences are going to be what they tap into, the scripts and games that they play, because of your individual experiences, and that's where they're going to lean into that. And they're, for those of us who experience V2K, although a lot of people I talk to in the TI community are so afraid to talk too much about it because they've had a hit or miss of it and a little bit, and could I get more of it? Is there's actually a lot of awareness that comes with it, because you're now seeing and hearing your opponent and how they show up constantly, and my mother thought that my boyfriend, now ex-husband, father of my child, was part of this, and his family was part of this. If you want to know, people always say, where did this start for you? Where do you think this
Right.
happened? I have no idea. My mother had this happen, but she believes it absolutely happened when I met and started dating, very casually at first, my now ex-husband. His family now recently, we found out, is part of a massive global law firm who protects patents on neuroscience related to what we're experiencing, and just published an article basically saying, warning to their clients that neuroethics and rights are coming. And so, maybe she was right. I do not sit and really direct people to talk about who we think is doing this. I don't know that helps from my perspective or my lens, but we can talk about what we're experiencing and create those patterns, and then hopefully within the institutions, the organizations, and the government agencies will create more and more rights, as we see some international communities are doing. But what I will say that is important and powerful to share my experience, although it's very personalized, it's very horrific, it's very sensitive in topic, but it's powerful to share because it tells us a lot about what we're going through. And I hear some of the language that guys have shared here. The Petri dish was something that, my communicators, because some of them are clone voices. I don't know, and I don't care to decide if if they speak English, but they present themselves with English spoken language as Americans, mostly men, and of a certain ethnicity, and so they show up again, though we know as cloned. And I've talked about this and brought guests on. They clone voices, and they've done this with me with deceased relatives. They've done this with neighbors. They've done this with neighbor voices. I mean, they've done this with my partner, spouse, his voice, and so you have to know that a lot of this is AI and a lot of it's cloned. And I really lean in, as my mission when I came to volunteer in this community was to lean into the no harm to yourself or to others, and to really move with love and intention in this community, because they're pitting us against each other and they're isolating you. And part of the psychological torture and warfare, both physical and mental, is to make you believe that your neighbors and people in your community and certainly your loved ones are part of this, and they're reading your mind, and you're vice versa. I hired multiple advanced PI firms to find my gang stalkers, and did not end in results. I was calling the police because I believed they were breaking in, and I couldn't find them on the camera. Why can't I ever find them on the camera? Well, supposedly it's the hacking of the Wi-Fi, but I'm pretty technical. I don't personally believe that. I think it's subliminal. And when I realize that I'm looking like someone who's presenting insane, and I have a lot to lose in custody of my child and employment and other things, I had to step back and see what was happening. My private eyes are not proving gang stalking. So I'm going to stop and look at this, what's happening. And now I'm looking at this V2K that I'm experiencing, and I'm realizing and starting to notice the patterns that other humans around me, from vehicles being parked, which you believe in the beginning scripts, or lights flashing or horns beeping, because those all things happen at different stages of my torture. I thought those people were following me, and and certainly there could have been, no one could find them. I could find them on any cameras, but now I see, and they still play, and love to acknowledge that they subliminally are impacting those around me. They can make a car swerve near me. They can make a car park, or a person look at me the exact time and place as they're saying something to me, so that I can have suspect of that person or those people and the way that they're interacting with me. But what they've shown me is truly like the Matrix that you see on the sci-fi movies, is that they have to the exact second the ability to tap into the energy that is our universe and maneuver all those things around us. And they have certainly made me trip and have caught me in a very big fall, literally stopped my body from falling, to show me the power and the control they had over every nerve and muscle within my body. And so those are just a lot of the examples that I would say. I have people on our V2K call, both nationally, internationally, and we share with others. When you get to a certain stage, you start to realize, all right, let's just tune out the gang stalking for a minute, and just let's assume that people are not actually tied to this and hired to harass us. If we stop playing into that trigger, whether there is someone there or there's not someone there, it does stop playing that script. They do back down on that script. Those things for others on the call, now our targeted individual victims they have restraining orders against them. One woman has come on the call. She's on the outside of a 3-year prison sentence because she did something illegal to what she thought was a gang stalker. Come to find out, she was charged with a crime, and she still has all the targeting, all the V2K, all the do attacks. And now she realizes they wanted to get her a criminal record, and so they created the paranoia. Yes, they created the paranoia. They created the isolation from her family and friends. And now she's on the other side, like I am, telling people, if you think, just try to imagine, the Matrix, the psyops, that others are in autopilot, as so many of us are. I am often, as well, as we do our usual routines, and something can totally trigger subliminally behavior and reaction. And they absolutely have, as I heard someone mention here, the ability to falsify emotions and simulate anger and happiness and fear, joy. And I say this often, because it is a constant that they're playing in the gray area. I'm definitely a rat in this lab, and that petri dish that they say I'll only understand once I understand quantum physics, because if you call them handlers, I don't use that word, but I've heard handlers, those voices that are communicating with me like to say, they're good afternoon, and they like to tell me they are a government agency. They like to tell me things to make me then anticipate the torture will be worse with this shift. They like me to think the shift has changed with a good afternoon. They have a certain personality that they like to name as Boston, and Boston likes to come in as he's the most terrifying, torturous, and most perverted, horrific, because I experienced simulated rape, which is just a form of torture. A lot of people I've been teaching, because so many women experience this, and men, that is not about desire. The sexual torture is not about desire. It is the most horrific way to dehumanize an individual psychologically and mentally. It is the most significant way to break someone's will. And that is what we're experiencing. Warfare, torture in our brains and our systems, our nerves and our bodies. And so that's part of that. And so when we've studied in our group, the psychology and analysts and all the studies around POWs and hostages of war that have experienced torture for lengthy periods, and they've experienced the sexual abuse, it is absolutely done intentionally to break your will, to dehumanize you, to isolate you, and in some cases to create a disassociation in the mind. And that has happened with in the women's group that I've created, where we felt it was safe to talk about the sexual assaults that we experience frequently, and what happens in our torture. And some of us are also second generation and V2K. we see a lot of the similarities to the POW and hostage scenario, and the disassociation. One friend now I hold dearly, who have so many similarities in our experiences. She really almost felt like she lost her mind. They had really sent her into a disassociation place. She's come on the other side of that, but again, they are literally trying to break and test and break and test. And so a lot of the things that they've done visually recently, I'd say in the last 5 years, is if you've seen Google Maps and you search something up and you can see that there's a visual screenshot of your destination or a resident, there's an image there, that our life, our timeline actually has memory stamps visually. And so they've played those. They've had me go back. Of course, they're speaking to me with telepathically, if you will. And so if they recall a moment in time, now that they have my entire timeline, then I can visualize that moment, and they can bring that back up. They can recall that at another time, and they will recall a memory while saying something subliminally or at actually articulating it, and it will be off. That memory photo does not match what they've articulated, and I catch that, and they are literally trying to identify what can they get over on you with your memory, with your thoughts. Will you be confused? Will you buy their false narrative? Will you buy the false placement of a memory or language or an emotion? And certainly I realized early on the false crying, and I'm going through a divorce and I'm fighting for custody, and I've got an alcoholic ex, and he's just in the throes of his addiction, which is a disease, and he's fighting it. But I've got a little child, and they're really attacking the emotions. And I remember sitting there one day thinking, I don't feel this intensely normally. This is not a normal feeling for me to have. And so, you know what? I'm going to check that. I'm going to turn that off. If this emotion is not useful to me in this moment, then I'm not going to feed it, because I started recognizing, well, I really feel upset or sad and want to cry. So I have to search in my mind, what's bothering me right now that would match this emotion. And that identified to me that I'm being projected a sad or an anger that doesn't match me. Because if I have to search for a moment or a reason or a time or a situation to fit a feeling that I'm having, that's a false feeling. And so it's again a test and scenario that's constantly being played. I was abused as a child sexually. And so, as we know, certainly in my county, in the California county that I'm in, 1 in 3 girls are SA'd before the age of 18, 1 in 5 boys before the age of 18. So we know the frequency of sexual assault. We know that it happens a lot, and we know that it's a good testing psyop place. And because I had that happen at 9 years old for 2 years, extremely traumatic. Luckily, I had a really strong foundation home, and we got therapy right away. And then as an adult, I continued adult therapy, and I started volunteering and giving of my time to Women and Children's Center. And so I spoke frequently about the essay and experiences. So as this simulation of rape and the simulation of psyops has gone through, I luckily have had a really strong foundation to battle and debate and argue or deflect, because I try not to debate or discuss any of the things that they're planting or trying to start. You've got to push that away, and it's very hard. You have to practice it. It takes time. And you have to counter with positivity. You have to flood with affirmations and positivity to stay grounded and stay healthy for your mind and your body, because all this can become physical. We know cortisol is absolutely physical, and that's a stress hormone. So imagine all the other things they can do with what they're simulating in our organs and our minds. So it's important to stay positive. But I think that one of the things that I really wanted to talk about with the SAPs is that people need to not feel the shame. They want you to feel the shame. They want you to feel the guilt. They want you to feel dehumanized. And a lot of people don't have the years and years of therapy and the reflection and the discussion and the analyzation of what I experienced as a child, and how horrific that is as a victim. And therefore, people are really caught up in the scripts of these psyop situations, and I'm always trying to share and empower. And the same thing happens. We talk about 70% women, and here's something that's interesting, because what they play with us in the V2K world of mothers specifically that we've collected in our pattern group is the Antichrist scenario. With me, before I experienced V2K, my mother was a target, and I was getting subliminal things that were interfering with her, right? And then, but I'm not aware of it, but I'm experiencing ghostly sensations and presences on my body and around me. That I think are, ghostly, or whatever, a loved one deceased, or a house that's haunted, or certainly they moved into the devil entity space as part of a script that they play, and a narrative that they play. And with us as mothers and our children, and certainly I'm sure that they've done it to men, because I'm going to share a story that loops this back, is that they play the Antichrist. And what they're doing is to find out the stability and how far they can manipulate and then control, planting false thoughts, subliminal thoughts and feelings on someone, because it can drive outcome. And that's what they're looking for, is the outcome, and where they can control that, and how much they can get away with by testing us as lab rats. And so with the Antichrist, we have small children at home, and we have these strange voices that are in our head, and we're not sure. We know it's not us. We know we're not crazy, and we're trying to figure out what's happening, and they're playing all these different scenarios. A lot of us who have grown up in a faithful a home of faith or spirituality, we go to that higher power. God, I grew up Presbyterian, so I went to the Bible, I went to Jesus Christ, I went to prayer, and immediately they tapped into my daughter was the Antichrist. And I was having, again, two-way conversation, and I said, well, I guess I will be carrying her on my shoulders through the gates of hell because I don't care. I was in such defense, in such disbelief and distrust of who they were, whatever it was that was showing up in this way. And so they didn't continue down that path very long. They tried to stay there for a little bit. But some of my other women and mothers in the group of V2K victims have shared that they played a much longer scenario, and they got very scared. And some of the parents even distanced themselves from their children because the psyop subliminal was played, where they were telling them something was wrong with their child. They were the Antichrist. The end of the world was coming. And then the child would do something which would be laughing while the parents experiencing V2K and do experience. And therefore, that would freak out the adult, and they loved the child, so they would distance themselves and isolate. The worst case scenario is what I've read here in SoCal, in San Diego. A beautiful family had a surfing company, and out of nowhere, the father starts feeling that he is being reached by the voice of God, and he is going to be someone to save the world. And his children, though, are the Antichrist, and the only way to save the world is to unalive his own children, who are not really human beings. And this adult human being believed this voice and took their lives. And I get so angry. I get so damn mad. I get so passion driven about speaking out, because there are people that do not know what's happening, and do listen and do hear these voices and these false behaviors, and because they're falsifying anger, intensity, emotion, and sadness, and they're creating these scripts. And we see them take action because they're trying to manipulate human behavior remotely so that they can drive an outcome. And I believe a lot of crimes that we're seeing are related in this way. And so the more that we can share, the more we stop dividing, the more we start collecting the patterns, especially around the psychological warfare, and we get into the neuroethics, I think that we're going to be able to create some change. But we have to share with people to self-reflect, look at yourself and intuition, question feelings. In our group, we talk about how we speak to our children safely. I don't share what's happening to me to create an unstable environment. I can't let my kiddos know what's going on, because it would seem unstable and fearful for them. And so, though, talk a lot about understanding our feelings and emotions and when to articulate something that doesn't seem normal. And I was really proud at 11, my daughter came to me and said, you know, I really feel really strong, intense feelings about you. I just, the words that you're speaking, every time you move your arms, Mom, every time you do this, I am so annoyed with you. And she and I have always been so close, and we've always just, it's just been a close relationship, a trusting one. I've always been a stable figure in her life, consistency, and she knew, though, because we kept an open dialogue about, you know, understanding ourselves and intuition and our world around us. And she said, I think I need to talk to a therapist because I don't know why I feel this. I don't feel this around anyone else. And this person makes me much more frustrated than you do. And I love you. Why would I feel this way? So you know, it was just an example. Now she got a therapist, and she doesn't have those feelings anymore. But it goes to show that all we can do is share our experiences, though carefully, articulate them carefully, which, Sarah, you've done beautifully when I met you, on the right terminology, so that people that are not experiencing this can receive what we're saying. Receptivity to the masses is huge. And I just don't think that we do that enough. It certainly within our own TI groups, we're needing to share. We're not, so many people, especially on my V2K call, they don't know what's happening to them. They are in different stages. We can tell them. A lot of us can tell them, you're in this stage. We think, based on our experiences, and try to disarm them by not feeding into the behavior, not being triggered. There are things that we do from the psychological V2K where I have a billboard. If you throw up an image, because they try to trigger you with words, sounds, and emotions, if you replace those things with your own word, sound, and emotion, and you visualize it on that clean white billboard, your thought is more powerful than theirs could ever be. Certainly, could they cripple me with pain in my ear, vibration in my jaw? They could hit me in my gut, and it feels like my stomach's turning inside out. They could totally assault my genitals. They could make my ankles feel like they can't walk. But my thoughts, I have more power in that projection. And so I can throw that word up, or that association, to a positive, and own that space. And, or I can, again, some people have the gray method that they use, and the gray rock method. So I would suggest some look that up. That's another way to take power back. It really relates to narcissism or toxic relationships, but this is obviously the most toxic form of a relationship you can imagine. This is like a prisoner of war, but they have access to all of your nerves, muscles, brain, and no one else can see what's happening to you. So knowing that and studying what POWs and hostages, we look at that trauma response. We look at how to heal through that while still managing it. But there's a lot we're all learning still, and I just continue to focus on the no harm to oneself or others, because I know, you know, in the group we have people that their ex, they were cloning his voice. She kept going into his house, and finally one time he happened to be there when she was there, and he said, "What are you doing?" and wanted to have her arrested. And she thought, you know, the whole time he was talking to her, and it wasn't. And now she realized that after, because they were cloning his voice, but she almost got arrested for that. So there's a lot of sharing and connection that we can create with the V2K. So, yeah, I'm talked a lot about that, but I think that, again, if you study the psychological warfare, that's what they're ultimately doing. And we've got to continue to think about how we show up in the community internationally, because we want whistleblowers and institutions, academics, and journalists. We already see some major, The Wired, Washington Post, others are talking about different governments who are tapping into brain warfare. We have countries that are developing neuroethics. So I just want us to be mindful, and that's my mission and what I try to bring to the calls.
Wow, tremendous. Thank you so much. I mean, what a powerhouse of a segment. You gave us so much information, Rose. I mean, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, incredible. And the work that you're doing now on the V2K call, I know you've had it for a while, and I've attended a couple. I mean, now that, you know, you're leading that call moving forward, it's such an important movement and safe space for people who are experiencing V2K, and for all TIs, really. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for for everything, really, Rose, even our friendship. I really appreciate you. I learned so much. So thank you. And I'll be also adding all of your social media, website, etc. on the website so people can follow your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, biweekly V2K. It's a safe space to connect, to not feel alone, to know that you're heard. This is not a delusion. This is real. But how we interact is with intent and with love. And so, please, yeah, share the word. We've got a great group of callers.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much, Rose.
Hi, good morning, family, friends. My name is Melody, and I am sharing my testimony today with you guys because this is the truth, and nobody should ever have to go through this. It's unimaginable, it's unspeakable, and this is the truth. And thank you to the Vine Sisters for the holding the Unmasked Symposium and asking for our testimonies. This started happening to me knowingly 6 years ago, but establishing a timeline, I believe this happened after a breast augmentation in 2009. Currently, this kind of technology and torture happens on a daily basis, and I receive auditory messages. My nervous system is hacked. This says they can see through my eyes. I mean, it's, amongst other things, controlling my facial features, gestures, my hands, my limbs, my legs, just about anything you can think about. I'm guessing this falls in line with the transhumanist agenda, but I stand with the community speaking out and giving our testimony, because this sounds so implausible. It sounds so against the grain. It makes everybody feel so unsafe that it's hard for anybody to even listen to us and take us seriously. But this is truth, and I stand with other fellow, I won't say victims, I say survivors that are going through this, and those that are probably about to start going through this. I pray over everyone, and I ask that you guys listen and please do your research and help us expose this. Thank you for listening.
So actually, you gave us a really good segue into our next segment with Dr. Emmanuel on global ethics and technology.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for arranging this event and for everyone participating and those out who will be watching going forward. I'm not going to talk about technical issues because we have experts here and we already have touched on the sort of mechanics of this. Rather to sort of step back for a couple minutes and talk about the larger implications of this global war that's taking place, and our real need to come together. This is critical that we're able to support each other, to feel for each other, and to work together as a team, because we're up against people who are organized. And as Martin Luther King said, and it's based upon other writings before, that if we want to bring peace, want to bring back stability and a normal society, that we have to be as well organized and as brave as those who are assaulting us, who are fighting against us. And fortunately for us, one thing in our advantage is that we're often braver than they are. Although they have all these technologies, all these bells and whistles, that many of them are quite cowardly. And when they're confronted with people who have moral integrity, who are not afraid, that they will back down. And the next stage going forward is organizing ourselves, but making this message accessible and part of the mainstream in American and global politics. And that's, I guess, what I really want to stress today. That many people, and it's tragic. I mean, I don't want to dwell on my own case, but I will say that it caused enormous problems in my own family members who decided that none of this happened. They don't want to recognize it, and that over time, I mean, that's fine for a week, for a couple months, but when you're talking about years, and then it turns into decades, that it causes enormous sort of distance. And I ended up losing not just family, but associates, friends, colleagues, permanently, because they had decided that they didn't want to recognize that this is going on, that there are people who are selected out of the population for these sorts of harassment at different levels. In my case, it varies, right? There have been times of intense periods of time when I was subject to medications and sorts of covert efforts to make me seem crazy. And of course, I was dismissed from my job for mental illness for 2.5 years, and eventually fired for mental illness back whatever 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. But constant repetition of this narrative. So we have to bring ourselves together, support each other, psychologically, spiritually, strategically as a group. And I really do appreciate everyone joining us. I pledge I will do what I can to support you. So you should feel free to contact me anytime. There may be people, getting in the way, undermining our solidarity, but I wouldn't worry about it. We keep at it. I mean, with Richard, with David, we had people, messing around, but we managed to overcome it through our dedication, our commitment. But the next stage for us really is to go mainstream and to appeal to ordinary people who have not experienced this, not experienced it directly, that this is about them. It's not just that they should be concerned about this strange group of people on the fringes, or worried that somehow if they talk to us, maybe they'll be it'll be like lepers, right? They'll get leprosy from associating with us, but that rather for them to understand that what we're being subject to is just preparation for what's going to happen to them, and that there really is no exception. That basically the entire population of the United States and basically of the world is being prepped for this new form of social control, a new form of politics. And so, and I believe we can make that message. And that's, I guess, among the roles that people play, that's my role, is to try and articulate for a general public to say that what's being done to us, and us, two groups, I would say, those of us who have been targeted for specifically political purposes because we were too articulate, we talked about issues we're not supposed to talk about, too effective, and then those who have been targeted in an experimental sense, not necessarily they said anything politically sensitive, but because they're certain demographic, certain group, maybe they were interesting to the experimenters and have been subject to these various different forms of torture and experimentation because they want to perfect both their technology and their techniques, because to go after the larger population. So going forward, as I had mentioned before, I was candidate for president in 2020. completely ignored and eventually driven out of the country, had to go to Korea. But I came back, and in 2023, I was able to run for 1 month in the Green Party against Cornel West, and we made considerable progress. However, I was totally blocked out of the media, so unless people who knew, of course, knew quite a lot about what the campaign was about, but of course, people who were in the mainstream knew nothing because the whole thing was blocked out. But we need to turn our alternative media into the mainstream, and this is going to be another critical point going forward. So that the Vine Sisters is mainstream. This is this is media. This is real politics, and the so-called politics is performative kabuki. It really is not about politics at all. So I would just conclude by saying that real politics in the United States and globally, real politics is about the control of information, control of food, control of transportation, control of our very identity and our subjectivity. And that final part is the way this new form of politics is an effort to shape how people perceive the world, to stop being citizens, stop being members of our community. And this is done at multiple levels. The very specific target individuals, people subject to electromagnetic, sound, light, nanotechnology, assaults on their minds, on their brains, on their bodies. This is a small part of this assault, but it's expanding very rapidly. It's part of a larger assault, which includes the use of pornography, the use of social media, distractive content, and the effort to addict people to food, superficial games, different kinds of distraction within our society. And you can see this. You just watch a movie today and compare what you see in a movie today with like a movie from the 1940s or 1950s. And you can see that the entire culture, performances, journalism has been degraded and turned into basically a weapon. And we're seeing this, especially, you may be aware of what's happening with Larry Ellison and his son, David Ellison, bought Paramount, took over CBS, acquired TikTok, and a variety of other things as well, some of which are not in the public domain. But basically, the entire entertainment, media, news, journalism is being turned into an enormous weapon to destroy the ability of citizens to think for themselves and turn us into zombies and ultimately slaves. So our challenge, or at least what I would like to help with, is to take the specific examples that Rose, that Sarah, that Richard, David, and Bob have related and explain it in a way that can be connected with this larger effort to degrade our culture, degrade our identities, our ability to think for ourselves, and do it in a way which is creative, which is compelling, which addresses spiritual and psychological issues, and which ordinary women in the street, men in the street can understand, and so they can see that what's been taking place in these special access programs is not something obscure out there, unrelated to them, but it's critical for understanding what's happening to them. And that many of us, most of us, are already at some level already in some sort of program. But they're sort of slowly ramping it up. And as we move to these new AI centers, new fusion centers that are going up all over the country, which are going to destroy our environment, use up all our energy and all our water, that these are part of this massive effort to recreate the entire society, the entire country. So thank you again Sarah, thank you to the Vine Sisters for taking the initiative and showing such strong leadership.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel. And seriously, I agree with everything you said. I do believe we're at that time where we do need to collaborate. And everyone who's on the front lines, we do need to come up with, I guess, broader ideas on a global scale. And David, that's actually, again, another perfect segue because you have such a great agenda of items to discuss around systemic corruption and rebellion through truth. I found it so interesting that I'll let you go ahead and introduce it because it is so important and it touches on a lot of the things we have discussed and will discuss. So go for it.
I think what I ended up sort of focusing most on is understanding that we are working under, the enemy that we face, their number one concept, so their number one tool is deception. And so I speak a lot to what Rose spoke to. I really resonated a lot with what Rose said. She's obviously very astute and has gone through it to be able to understand exactly what we're facing. Yes. And so I'd like to sort of, the enemy uses against us the concept of superstition a lot. And so it's a very psychological game that we play. Deception and psyops, number one, this is the war of the mind. The new war isn't out on the battlefield, it's fought in the mind. The use of ghosts, aliens, spirits, demons, and interdimensional spirits, and so on, becomes very profound a tool for a institution that wants to control the people. It becomes an extremely useful tool. And when you couple that with V2K, your voice to skull, and subliminal programming, which I believe is being weaponized against the entire population, and that was happening before COVID. So they were able to do this before COVID. And to the point where I have stories from people who worked as a nurse, and she wasn't going to get the jab, for example. And the story that she told was she was just walking along the corridors of the hospital one day, and it was like in her head, all this popped up. Oh, I may as well just get it. You may as well just get the jab. You may as well just get the jab in her own voice, right? This is the kind of tools that the enemy is using against the population. And this is why we've got swathes of people walking around all mimicking the same. Now, and this isn't just a general broadcast to the population. What we end up with is that if they want to create division, they can create division. If they want to create unity, they could create unity. Unfortunately, they don't tend to do that. They only tend to use it in disastrously, ghastly, disgusting ways, unfortunately. And so this goes from big populaces down to your home situations. For example, like what Rose spoke about of her child, who was obviously had been weaponized against her. Her child was suggesting that she was like, her movements and her voice and everything was irritating her. So all that takes is programming. And this is why I say it's so important to reinforce the mind. Anyone who's experiencing tinnitus is most likely receiving layers and layers of programming within that tinnitus. And I can prove that, and I have proven that, in fact, just by recording dead air and being able to extract out the voices that are inside that air. So you just record it with a normal microphone, because these are sent on AM broadcasts. The AM converts into audio just from straight up audio recording. And Amy Holland, I believe, has much information on this, so I recommend her work as well. The type of programming tells us a lot. Like if you break out these voices that you receive when you record these things in the air, that's apparently the voices in our head. We can record the voices in our head, right? So if any of us are declared schizophrenic, it's quite funny that we can actually record the voices in our head. I always put that to people. If I'm schizophrenic, why can I record the voices in my head? The type of thing that they're saying is stuff like, for me, it'd be different for everyone. If you believe in aliens, it might say that the aliens are coming to save us, or it might tell you that the aliens have got power over you. if you believe in spirits or demons, it might be a satanic voice, which this is what mine is. And it basically tells me that Satan has the heavens. Satan has the heavens. Satan will burn you. Satan's gonna, and then it might also work on your addictions, that you want a cigarette, you want this, or that you want food, or that you want sex, or that you want one of these, basically working. You can base it on the 7 deadly sins, like the encouragement of the sins, and this is why some of the teachings in the Bible are very, very valuable for reinforcing ourselves. So the 7 heavenly virtues, which I like to focus on as well, because they work on us breaking our belief systems. The system wants to prove that it can turn a person who is good into someone who is bad. This is why you see, as Rose spoke about, these terrible events that are happening with greater and greater frequency since they've been able to. It all comes with the 5G rollout and all these new IEEE protocols of sending more and more data. They can individualize the attacks across all spectrum of the populace. And so what we're seeing is, if they want to weaponize someone and create a patsy out of them, say they're trying to get rid of, in Australia, they're trying to get rid of all kinds of weapons. Like they just banned machetes in my state. All they did was they've obviously programmed these kids to be desensitized to violence, and then you get gang violence and people slashing people with machetes, and then that becomes a big thing on the news, and all of a sudden it's like, right, we're getting rid of those weapons, right? We were already disarmed with guns and stuff years ago, which was also a psyop.
Yep.
And so these are just, the best way to look at these events that are occurring today is you always need to ask the question, who benefits? Who benefits from what's actually being said? And there's always an agenda. I honestly think there is not a single story that I hear on our national news, commercial, mainstream media that isn't just a fabricated event, something that has been. And when you're talking about being able to take the minds of the people and coerce them into a way of thinking that is changing their urges, beliefs, and actions through programming, you can completely fabricate. You can create parties on both sides that are going to act in specific ways, and then you can nearly guarantee, you can then put subliminal triggers, that is a way of actually triggering a feeling, emotion, response into a person, and then trigger them at the right time, and you're going to have you can predict with great accuracy what is going to happen in that situation. You can do this en masse. You can do this with individuals, like Rose described with her daughter, all of a sudden just feeling like she couldn't deal with her anymore. Like, that's not normal. A child to their mother, that's nothing normal. I get the same thing with my housemate. He's been weaponized. I started using sounds to get rid of my tinnitus. I use a white noise. Fortunately for me, it works for people, I think, who haven't had too much inundation. So those people have had jabs, they won't get rid of it with that, mostly, from what I've heard. So I'm trying to figure out what the difference is there. But with my tinnitus, I can completely get rid of it with a white noise. But yeah, my housemate, I had those sounds playing, and he can't stay in the same room as me. He's completely changed. And he started exhibiting anger and aggression towards me that I've never seen in him before. And I've known him for over 10 years. And all of a sudden, it's like, click, he's responding in a certain way. Now, you can see when people flip. And this is happening to our dearest, our closest, our parents, our children, our best friends, all of a sudden turning into... And they're saying you're changing, but we can see the change that's occurring, right? We're all being programmed. We need to accept that. It's not just everyone around us is being programmed. The difference between the people who will survive these attacks and someone who won't are those who recognize what's happening and actually take deliberate steps to fortify your mind. And it's very important that we fortify our minds. And so that, I think, is one of my main focuses, among others, because I think there's a spiritual aspect, there's the physical aspect. What can we do to make ourselves safe in our environments? What can we do to minimize our attacks? What can we do to fortify our minds and to stay positive? And I think, you know, Rose touched on a lot of these points again. I just really resonated with what she said. She's very good. So thanks for that.
Still on, I think. Yeah, it was great. It's true.
Yeah. And so I'm just trying to see. So essentially the basis of all this, and it hints at the who, and I know Rose didn't want to touch it, and I think that's very wise of her. I think she's very astute as well to be careful about those sort of topics, because again, it plays into us looking not very professional when we can't all speak in unison on particular topics. And everyone knows the basis of this is deception and confusion, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone's getting a different story, and it's weaponizing our belief systems, as Rose mentioned as well. It takes our belief systems and it goes with it. It's like, if you think it's the president of the United States that's in your V2K, they'll probably just go with it. You know, and I know people who will swear black and blue that it's Obama who's attacking them in their V2K. You know what I mean? And so this system will take whatever you like, and it can imitate any person it wants, and it'll match your superstition. So what do we got? We've got black magic and illusionism and deception being used and a form of monarch programming, which allows the change of the people around you and yourself to make you very suggestible. And then we've got the neurological manipulation. We've got nanotech within the brain, which allows them to modulate various areas of the brain to trigger stuff like paranoia, anger, sadness, and so on. And so those two components, and the psychological programming hypnosis side, the programming, hypnosis, subliminals, placebo, affirmation, this sort of stuff that plays into our heads all the time. Like anyone who's getting tinnitus, they're not just getting tinnitus, they're getting programming. And I can prove that. Like if you get in programming anytime, just hit a record on a little recorder or a microphone plugged into Audacity on your computer, and you'll capture, and then just amp that up and you'll hear voices in there. It's very simple.
We should do like an example of that. I would love to see that, like real time.
Yeah. Well, I intend to try and do a video where I can show that. It's quite amazing, you know, that this stuff is just flying around in the air. And I think, you know, it is tuned in to specific people, but I think they can do blanket broadcasts. So, for example, I think during COVID, I think the safe and effective mantra would have been programmed into people's heads. And then what they do is they reinforce it on the television. And then when people hear it, they go, I've heard that before, but they don't even know why. It's familiar and it's safe. They know that it's safe and effective. We've heard it before. I don't know where we've heard it, but it's in our subconsciouses. Now, this is how the secret societies have ruled from the shadows for centuries. And I think this is the commonality. So when we start talking about the who, these are the places that this comes from. I mean, monarch program itself comes out of the Illuminati, and it goes back further than that. Forms of programming, affirmation, and uses of reinforcing and placebo to actually heal our bodies and that sort of stuff goes right back to Egyptian times. It goes back to BC. And there is a big hole in between it, I think, between sort of those earlier years to now. But there is a clear path from around the 1700s through to now, from Mesmer and through till now, where those techniques of programming, hypnosis, and so on have been taken by these societies and then used. And everyone knows that symbolism is a huge thing for them as well. There is no end, like, to the manipulation of people's worlds when it comes to the mind, because as the Hermetic principle says, the universe is mental. That is, everything that we experience is a construct within our minds, and that's our realities. And so as soon as you start manipulating that, you are effectively changing people's realities. And then when you get a combination of people's realities and they're all thinking the same thing, then that has a way of rippling out into the world and creating the reality. And so if you get enough people thinking the same thing, you start to change what is our reality. So we could effectively say, by putting these belief systems into people's minds through these techniques, we have a mechanism for changing the reality. And as you can see, the technocracy and the New World Order has been very successful in planting these concepts into people's minds through all kinds of avenues, from direct into the mind, which is the one that most people don't realize, through to your TV, through to your radio, through to your newspapers, your online, your and the effectiveness of that is great. But we need to start to envisage a new reality. We need to start to recognize our power, because the thing is, a deceptive power is one thing, but a power that sits in truth for the right causes is much, much stronger than any of the darkness. These people who resonate out their dark intentions, their soul knows that this is not right. And so that lacks a power that we hold when we act with noble intention and knowing at our hearts what we do is right. And so yeah.
David, I wanted to ask you a question. This is Rose. So the fact
Hi,
that they, are constantly, they can tap into any moment in time and memory and be in any room with me in any space and time that was my existence. As you think about that, and there are secret patents for institutions, privatizations, there are innovations, there are government spaces, and certainly in healthcare, we think that we're protected with HIPAA and other. So there are all of these places that should be private. Knowing that this is, much further than Stanford was doing in the 70s, talking about remote viewing, because they could just tap into any one of our minds without us knowing it and have a triggered thought. And we go back into that place to look at a blueprint on a table, if it's some, space to build a weapon. And so governments and all the protection that's being taken away from this technology, I assume that everyone has got to be in this secret space of building protection against this within their own countries or within their own institutions if they're building this, because I do believe there are academics, I believe there's privatization that are for profit, and I believe they're governmental that are all tapping into this capability. So do you think that this is other tech that we're going to need to build outside of just like the strength of our minds and the positivity and the behaviors that we control? Is there other tech that's being developed? Is that a direction, and who do we tap for that so that we build shields within ourselves?
Well, I mean, I did a recent set of affirmations that are designed to build firewalls. So the whole thing we have to recognize is the solution to this isn't necessarily a machine, something that sits in physicality, but something that what our attack is an attack on our mind. It's an attack on our perceptions. It's an attack on our realities, which come from the mind. That is, the universe is mental. It's a mental construct. It's the number one hermetic principle. These guys that do this from the secret societies, they are very aware of this reality. This is the reality of the constructs of our world. So the solution may not come out of some machine or some tech that's going to save us, but through understanding the simple principles that we are in charge of reinforcing our own realities. And in reinforcing our own realities, we can change our realities. So I did a series of affirmation that was designed to reinforce the mind, to create a firewall in the mind, and to make it so that you can't just go and plant whatever seeds you want inside my mind. These are the kind of steps that people need to be taking. I think anyone who's not reinforcing their own mind you can do it through prayer, you can do it through affirmation, you can do it through silent subliminals, which I have articles on my Substack, Gecko Pico. There's one in there called using silent subliminals to protect your mind from programming. And these sort of steps are crucial, I think, and they have a way of completely breaking these programmings. Like, you can actually be unaffected by them if you utilize these techniques, whether they be silent subliminals. It's reprogramming your mind. If we're being programmed 24/7, and this is like what a lot of targets are facing, the reason why they're getting 24/7 tinnitus, doesn't matter where they go. If you can't cancel that tinnitus, if you can't block that, then you need to be filling your head with something that's positive to counter what it's doing. Or you need to be creating a firewall in your mind so the subconscious recognizes that anything that comes from the outside will get disregarded. And that's what the firewall concept is. So the idea is that you build affirmations that say any external programming that's coming in, my mind will completely and automatically disregard. It'll throw away any external urges or belief systems that I haven't agreed to. If I haven't agreed to it, then I just throw it out. And so we need to, if you get that into your subconscious, then your subconscious automatically filters out the rubbish, right? And only stays with stuff that you have a belief system in. If it doesn't fit your belief system, it just gets thrown out. If it's foul, if it's coming from external and you haven't agreed to it, then it gets thrown out. I mean, this is also reinforced just through having a strong will. You know, that's why you've got people who are easily programmed. You've got people who aren't. Generally, people who are on the program, especially if they're being used as a Manchurian candidate, have been proven to be easily programmable. And the techniques they can use these days by hitting you with frequency can actually result in opening of the mind to allow you to be easily programmable. So, for example, it used to be a third of the population who were easily programmable. And then, but now they've made it way more effective. And now it's something like 80 or 90% they can do using various techniques, because they can send... they can use nano mind modulation or frequency modulation of the brain to make you more susceptible to these techniques. Because this has been something that's been in the works, and they're constantly researching it, right? Neuroscience and how they can make their techniques more effective. So yeah, program's a massive, massive part of it, and that's what I wanted to highlight mostly today. And also how law of attraction plays into it. And that is, our beliefs create our realities. And that's actually an extremely important thing to understand. And once you understand that, know how strong affirmation is. So when you say you're getting attacked and you go, well, actually, and you believe that it's something much worse than it is, you know, if you can say all illusions are dropped and I can see the reality for what it is, then you can actually start to see the reality. And that makes their attacks way less effective. Because I'll tell you now, I've already caught these programmings coming through where it's sort of going, where it's saying, you know, the sound will get louder and louder and you won't be able to deal with it and da-da-da. So they use the programming to make you more susceptible to the attacks. Right? If they want you crazy, like you've just got to look at what are the motives. If the motive's to make you look crazy or to make you lose it or to be disabled or otherwise, disabled or deceived, they will program into you so that you are more easily programmable or deceived. Right? And so once you know this, you can fortify yourself. If you don't think this is happening, then you are susceptible. That's the way I see it. And so the more people recognize that programming goes further than our televisions and our symbols in our websites or on the radio, the more power it is to the people, because we can start to actually use these techniques. Let's flip it on its head. We can use these techniques to strengthen ourselves. We can use these techniques to fortify ourselves. And then once we've done that, we'll become a force to be reckoned with. But only when we deal with our own, what's coming in, and fortify ourselves so that we're not vulnerable to that. Because otherwise we're sitting ducks, right? And so I really wanted to get that out there today. That was the main sort of avenue that I wanted to cover.
That was amazing. And I
Yeah.
agree. And I wish more TIs would understand that the healing is so important because this is trauma based. You know what I mean?
That's where we derive our strength from. And without that, then that's why I think people become confused, because they can just induce confusion, right? If they want people to be confused, they can just seed confusion into them. If they want people to not be able to work together, they can seed opposition. If they want people to appear crazy, then they can seed crazy. So I mean, we need to recognize that our minds are primary, and we need to strengthen them, and understand our belief plays into a lot of this. Because don't give it undue. I don't want to freak people out. Don't give it undue energy. In other words, don't go, oh my God, they've got my mind and there's nothing I can do about it. There is something you can do about it. It's called deliberate mindfulness and affirmation, for starters. And just saying the words, I am more powerful, I am stronger than this, is a great start. And I can rise above it. And I know myself. Know yourself and reinforce yourself. I am a good person. I see through illusion. All those kind of things. I can see through illusion. I'm a good person. I'm strong. I'm greater than this. It allows us to. It shouldn't be underestimated. Let's say that. And it's about feeling it. It's not just about saying it, which is what I wanted to say as well. And that is why.
I think, David, you might have a book coming with for affirmations to teach us.
Yeah, I've got a heap of them. And look, a lot of it's on my website. So get down to Gecko Pico at Substack for those people who want to learn a bit about that sort of stuff and techniques. Like, I try and keep it practical. I think I'll be covering a bit of this V2K recording stuff, which I think is crucial. That's another article which I had coming out, which is gathering evidence, right? And there's I think I had 5 different things: gathering evidence that's tangible evidence. What have we got? We've got nanotech. We've got these frequencies flying around. We've got sound that you can record. We've got thermal imaging for dews that come down, like beamforming dews you can use. And so this is the avenues that I think I'll be exploring going forward, because we need to start to get together, and if we can all start gathering and forming a group of coherent people moving towards the same ends with tangible evidence, then we can become a force to be reckoned with, I think. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I agree that was such a good segment. I learned so much, and now I can't wait to go on your Substack, because I want to start tonight with my affirmation. I'm serious.
Absolutely.
Great work, David, and thank you so much for being here today. You shared such good information. I mean, the TI community needs it. So I'm just so grateful to have all of you join us. I know it's probably went longer than we expected, and thank you all for your voices, your faith, and your bravery. We've covered so many topics on today's call, and technically it's our last day. But clearly, we see here that this is an ongoing conversation, and very much a space that we need to continue to collaborate and have a lot of FaceTime and come up with some solutions. And I feel really hopeful, especially with all these amazing people that are on the front lines with such great ideas. So thank you to this panel. Thank you to all of the panelists in our symposium. Any final words before we wrap it up? We'll start with you, Bobby.
Sure. This is great, Sarah. I really appreciate you doing this. And, I was glad that I was able to contribute a little bit. And it looks like David and Rose are still on, and they were both great. Really enjoyed that. And I think Rose is doing a great job on the V2K call. I've listened to that a couple times recently, and so I'm going to be thinking about this. And my main thing is always thinking about how we can how we can fight, how we can make progress on this. And I think we've got some good ideas here, and maybe we can talk more about that later. But with discussions like this, I have optimism that, you know, we can make some progress and we can win. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you so much, Bobby. And I agree 100%. Anything from you, Rose?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for including me in this conversation. And I'm so grateful for all the speakers here across your entire symposium. And I think my final thoughts are always just being so grateful and reminding people about their courage and to hold on to that as we, you know, continue to connect and know that people are seen and valued. You're not alone. I send love and acceptance and strength to everyone that is experiencing this and to humanity as we go through this. And so I just want us to really continue to think about holding each other in a place of light and building a kind community where we belong, and just encourage everybody to move with love for yourself first and certainly for others. But let love be your anchor, your compass, and, you know, the quiet revolution that we're fighting here. And do no harm, right? We think about the oxygen mask on an airplane. You cannot help others without helping yourselves by putting on that mask. But move with intention and love, and we together can do really anything. We have an incredible ability as human beings, and I believe in the quantum observatory effect. If you look that up, they believe that it's like manifesting. They've tested scientists who believe in an outcome in their test results, that test ends in those results that they believed they would get. And so the observatory effect in quantum physics, I believe in here. So I believe that we are going to be about the change.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much, Rose. You know, you're a powerhouse and you're one of my favorites. So thank you so
You
much
too.
for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Thank you. And David, any
Yeah,
final words?
thank you, Sarah. It's been a real pleasure being alongside of such a great group of people. There's so many amazing, intelligent people who are going, even in the face of adversity, are showing themselves to be so strong. And in fact, it reminds me of how true it is that those who go through adversity have no option but to either you either let it defeat you or you grow from it, and it's clear within this group of people and the targeted community at large, the amazing minds who are going through such terrible things, but they somehow manage to rise above every time, and it humbles me to be part of such an amazing group of people. I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for organising everything, and the Vine Sisters at large for all the work that they do. It's truly an amazing thing you've done there to create such a great unit, and yeah, it's been great to be a part of it. So thank you, and everyone, chin up. Remember, our realities are our own, right? We create those, and the more we come together, the stronger, with a direct, focused intention of what we want to achieve, the greater things that we can do with that. And so I look forward to more work with all of you.
Yay. Thank you so much. All of you are truly appreciated. And on that note, have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.